I hired a chef for my husband's birthday. He was the man who put my father in prison 20 years ago. My name is Christine. I am 44 years old. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and 8 months ago I planned what I believed was a perfect surprise birthday dinner for my husband of 16 years and discovered, when the chef walked through my front door, that I was looking at the man whose testimony had sent my father to prison when I was 24 years old. I need to give you the background because without it nothing that follows makes sense. My father's name is Edward. He was a building contractor in Nashville who had built his business over 30 years, and who was convicted of construction fraud when I was 24 years old. The conviction was based significantly on the testimony of a former business partner, who told the court that my father had knowingly submitted fraudulent bids and falsified project documentation. My father maintained his innocence throughout the trial, and has maintained it in the 20 years since. I believed him then, and I believe him now not out of blind loyalty, but because I spent years after the conviction going through every document I could access, and never found anything that made his guilt feel certain to me. My father served 6 years. He was released when I was 30. He is 71 now and lives quietly in a small house outside of Nashville, and has never fully recovered professionally or personally from what happened to him. The man who testified against him was named Gregory. I had seen his face once in the courtroom, and had carried it in my memory for 20 years the way you carry the face of someone who changed everything. When Gregory walked through my front door with a chef's bag over his shoulder, and introduced himself as the private chef I had booked for my husband's birthday dinner, I recognized him in approximately 4 seconds. He did not recognize me. Why would he? I had been a 24-year-old sitting in a gallery while he testified, not someone he had any reason to remember. I stood in my kitchen, and I looked at this man, and I made a decision in the space of about 30 seconds. I told my husband I needed a few minutes to finish getting ready, and I went to our bedroom, and I sat on the edge of the bed and I breathed. Then I came back out, and I was a perfect hostess for the entire evening. Gregory cooked an extraordinary meal. He was charming and professional, and my husband and our guests had a wonderful time. I smiled through every course. When Gregory left at the end of the evening, I shook his hand and told him the food had been exceptional. Then I closed the front door, and I told my husband I needed to tell him something. My husband's name is David. We have been married for 16 years. And he is the person I trust most in the world. And he looked at me across our kitchen after our guests had gone, and listened to everything I told him without interrupting once. When I finished, he asked me what I wanted to do. I told him I did not know yet, but that I needed to find out if what Gregory had said in court 20 years ago was the truth. I spent the next 3 months finding out. I am not a private investigator or an attorney. I am a high school English teacher. But I have always been methodical, and I had 20 years of accumulated questions, and I knew where to start. I started with the public court records from my father's trial, which I obtained through the clerk's office. I read every page of Gregory's testimony with the specific attention of someone looking for inconsistencies, rather than the general attention of someone looking for understanding. I found 3 statements that did not align with documentation I had seen in my father's files. Statements about dates and communications that contradicted records my father had kept, and that I had in storage boxes in our basement. I brought what I found to an attorney named Rebecca, who specialized in post-conviction matters. Rebecca reviewed everything and told me carefully that the inconsistencies I had identified were meaningful, but that post-conviction relief after 20 years was a significant legal undertaking requiring more than documentary inconsistencies. She told me I needed something more direct. What I found more directly came from a woman named Sandra, who had worked in Gregory's office at the time of the original dispute. I found Sandra through a combination of old business records and social media patients that took 6 weeks. Sandra was 68 years old and living in Knoxville, and she answered my call on the 3rd ring. And when I explained who I was and what I was looking for, she was quiet for a long time. And then she said she had wondered for 20 years if anyone would ever call. Sandra provided a sworn affidavit. I will not detail everything in it because the legal process is still ongoing, but the affidavit addressed specific aspects of Gregory's testimony and the circumstances under which it was given in ways that Rebecca described as significant. My father's case is currently being reviewed by a post-conviction attorney whom Rebecca connected us with, and who has filed a formal petition. The process will take years. It may not result in exoneration. But it is moving, and it is moving because I hired a private chef for my husband's birthday and recognized a face I had been carrying for 20 years. I have not contacted Gregory. Rebecca has advised me not to, and I have followed that advice. My father knows what is happening. I drove to his house the morning after I found Sandra, and I sat at his kitchen table, and I told him everything. He listened with the particular stillness of someone who has waited a very long time for something, and is afraid to move in case it disappears. When I finished, he held my hand across the table, and he did not say anything for a while. Then he said, "You did this." I told him I was not done yet. Update. 4 months later, the post-conviction petition has been formally accepted for review. Rebecca says this is not a guarantee of outcome, but is a meaningful procedural step. My father called me the morning we received that news. He was crying. I have heard my father cry twice in my life, once when my mother died and once that morning. I sat on the floor of my kitchen while my husband stood next to me, and I held the phone, and I let my father cry, and I did not say anything because there was nothing to say that would have been adequate. We are waiting. I have learned in the past 8 months that waiting with something is different from waiting without it. We are waiting with something now, and that is different, and it matters. Seuss Reddit stories. My new neighbor introduced himself, and I realized he was the anonymous donor who paid for my cancer treatment 6 years ago. My name is Marcus. I am 41 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio. And 6 months ago, my new neighbor knocked on my door with a plate of cookies and introduced himself, and I shook his hand and said my name and watched his face do something I did not understand in that moment, but that I now understand completely. His name is Walter. He is 64 years old. He is the person who paid for my cancer treatment 6 years ago, and who has lived with the knowledge of what he did while I have spent 6 years wondering who my anonymous donor was. Let me go back to the beginning, because the beginning is where everything that happened later was made. 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin lymphoma. I was 35 years old, recently divorced, working as a high school history teacher with health insurance that covered a significant portion of my treatment, but left a gap that my salary and savings could not cover. The gap was approximately $67,000. My doctors had laid out a treatment plan that was aggressive and expensive, and that gave me the best odds, and I was facing the reality that the best odds might not be financially accessible to me. I applied for every assistance program I could find. I contacted foundations. I reached out to my hospital's financial assistance office. I was doing everything the right way with the particular desperation of someone who understands that the right way may not be enough. 3 weeks into this process, I received a letter from my hospital's patient financial services office telling me that an anonymous donor had contributed $67,000 to a restricted account established specifically to cover my remaining treatment costs. The letter said the donor had requested complete anonymity, and that the hospital was not able to provide any information about their identity. I sat in my oncologist's waiting room, and I read that letter 3 times. Then I went in for my appointment, and I cried in front of my doctor, which I had not done before, and she handed me a tissue, and did not say anything because she understood what the letter meant. I completed my treatment. I have been in remission for 5.5 years. I have thought about my anonymous donor regularly for 6 years, not obsessively, not with any expectation of finding them, but with the specific ongoing gratitude of someone who understands that their life exists in its current form because a stranger made a decision. I moved to my current neighborhood 8 months ago. New apartment, fresh chapter, the kind of deliberate geographic reset that people make when they are ready to build something new. Walter moved into the unit next to mine 3 months after I did. He knocked on my door on a Saturday afternoon with homemade cookies and introduced himself, and I introduced myself, and I watched something move across his face when I said my name. A flicker of something I registered but could not place. We talked for 20 minutes on my doorstep. He was warm and interesting, a retired physician who had moved to Columbus to be closer to his daughter and grandchildren. When he left, I had a feeling I could not name, and did not examine until 2 days later. 2 days later, I was looking at the hospital's annual giving report from 6 years ago. I had saved it because I had looked through it at the time hoping to find a clue about my donor. And I was reading through the section about a restricted gift fund when I found a reference to a donor recognition event and a photograph. Walter was in the photograph. He was not named in the caption, but I had sat on my doorstep with him for 20 minutes 2 days earlier, and I know his face. I sat with that photograph for a long time. Then I did what any reasonable person who has just potentially identified their anonymous cancer benefactor does. I absolutely did not know what to do. I talked to my therapist. I talked to my best friend. I walked around my apartment for 2 days trying to figure out whether to say anything, how to say anything, what saying anything would mean for a man who had specifically chosen anonymity, and who was now my neighbor through a coincidence that I still cannot fully process. I knocked on Walter's door on a Thursday evening. He answered and invited me in, and we sat in his living room, and I told him what I had found and what I thought it meant, and I asked him directly if he was the person who had paid for my cancer treatment. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said yes. He explained that he had been a physician for 35 years, and that the gap between what treatment cost and what patients could access had been one of the defining frustrations of his career. He had established a private fund when he retired, and had worked with several hospitals to identify patients facing critical treatment gaps. I was one of 7 people he had helped over 3 years. He had not tracked what happened to any of them. He said he had chosen anonymity specifically because he did not want gratitude. He wanted people to heal without the obligation of feeling they owed something. When I said my name on his doorstep, he had recognized it immediately. He had not said anything because he had been trying to decide whether to. I told him I had spent 6 years wanting to say thank you. He said he had spent 6 years hoping the people he had helped were okay. I told him I was better than okay. He nodded and we sat there for a while. And it was one of the most specific and strange and meaningful conversations of my life. Walter and I have dinner every other week. His daughter and grandchildren visited last month, and I was invited to join them for Sunday lunch. He is my neighbor, and he is something that does not have a clean name. Not a father figure exactly, not a friend in the ordinary sense, something that exists because he paid for my life to continue, and I moved in next door, and I recognized his face in a photograph. Update. 3 months later, Walter told me last month that I was the first of the 7 people he helped who had ever found him. He said he had spent 3 years wondering whether the others were okay, and that knowing about one of them, knowing I was okay, knowing I was good, had given him something he had not realized he was missing. I told him he had given me something considerably larger. He said it was not a competition. I said I knew, but I was keeping score anyway, and he laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that belongs to someone who has done something genuinely good and knows it, and does not need to say so. Seuss Reddit stories. My husband's entire family showed up to my surprise party. I had never met any of them because he told me they were dead. My name is Rebecca. I am 36 years old. I live in Denver, Colorado, and 14 months ago my husband threw me a surprise birthday party, and the surprise was not the party. The surprise was the 12 people standing in my living room who I had never met before in my life, because for 4 years my husband had told me every single one of them was dead. My husband's name is Thomas. We had been together for 5 years and married for 4 when this happened. Thomas had told me early in our relationship that he had lost his entire immediate family, his parents, his 2 brothers, an aunt and uncle who had raised him for a period, several cousins, in a combination of illnesses and accidents over a 10-year period beginning when he was 20. He had told me these stories with the specific grief of someone for whom loss was a defining experience. I had believed him completely and had held that part of his history with the care you give to someone who has survived something genuinely hard. I had never questioned it. I had never had reason to. When I walked into my living room on the evening of my 36th birthday, and found it full of people I did not recognize, I assumed they were friends or colleagues I had not met. Then Thomas brought a woman forward and introduced her as his mother. His mother. A woman named Patricia who was 67 years old and alive and standing in my living room holding a birthday cake and smiling at me with Thomas's eyes. I looked at Thomas. He looked at the floor. Patricia saw something in my face that told her something was wrong, and her smile changed. I said very quietly that I needed a moment, and I walked to our bedroom, and I sat on the edge of the bed, and I understood that the person I had married had told me his entire family was dead for 4 years, and they were not dead, and they were in my living room. Thomas came in 2 minutes later. I told him he had until I came back out to tell me the truth, and that the truth needed to be complete. He told me everything in 11 minutes. His family was not dead. He had been estranged from them for 10 years before we met. A serious falling out over money and family dynamics that had been painful, and that Thomas had not known how to explain. When we started dating, he had been in a period where he genuinely did not know if he would ever reconcile with them, and he had found it easier to tell me they were gone than to explain the complicated reality of a family estrangement that he was ashamed of. Then the lie had grown. He had been in tentative contact with his mother for 2 years. The reconciliation had been slow and careful and real. He had wanted to introduce me to his family, but the longer the lie had existed, the more impossible correcting it had seemed. The birthday party had been his attempt to do something he did not know how to do directly. I want to tell you what I think of that logic because I have spent 14 months thinking about it. I understand it in the way you understand how a thing happens even when you cannot accept that it happened. Thomas was ashamed of his estrangement, then ashamed of the lie, then trapped by both in a way that I believe he genuinely did not know how to exit. The birthday party was not a good solution. It was the solution of someone who had run out of other ideas, and whose judgment had been compromised by 4 years of increasing pressure. It was also the solution that ended the lie and introduced me to his mother on my birthday with 12 people watching. I stayed at my friend Dana's house for 2 weeks after the party. I needed space to think without Thomas in it. Dana did not tell me what to do, which is one of the things I value most about her. She provided wine and silence in appropriate proportions, and let me arrive at my own conclusions. My conclusions took the full 2 weeks. Thomas and I are still married. I want to be honest about why, because I think the why matters. It is not because what he did was acceptable. It was not. It is not because the 4 years of lying about something this significant can be easily absorbed. They cannot be. It is because in 4 years of marriage I had known Thomas to be a person of genuine character in every way except this one catastrophic way, and because his family, the family I met at my birthday party, are people I have come to know over the following 14 months and who are real and warm and who love their son, and who were hurt by the estrangement, and who have welcomed me with a generosity that I had not expected. Patricia called me 2 weeks after the party. She called me directly, not through Thomas. She told me she had known from my face that night that I had not known the truth, and that she was sorry. She said Thomas had made a mistake that came from shame, and that shame was something his family understood about him because it had been at the center of the estrangement too. She did not excuse what he had done. She explained the person who had done it. We have had coffee 11 times since that phone call. She is one of my favorite people. Update: 5 months later, Thomas and I completed a full year of couples therapy last month. Our therapist told us at our final session that the work we had done was among the most honest she had witnessed in her practice, and that she meant that as a genuine observation, not a compliment. Thomas has been in individual therapy throughout the same period, working on the shame patterns that made the original lie feel like the only available option. I have been in individual therapy working on what it means to trust someone after learning that trust had been operating on false information. Patricia and Thomas's brothers came for dinner last weekend. We ate at the table Thomas and I bought together 3 years ago, and I looked around at a family I had been told was gone and thought about the specific strangeness of gaining something you did not know you were missing. I am not fully repaired from what happened. I do not think fully repaired is a realistic destination. I think I am building something different from what I had before, and I think what I am building is more honest, and I think that matters more than returning to what existed before I walked into my living room on my birthday and found it full of people who were supposed to be dead.